All right, we are live. There we go. Um, thanks, Johnny. Good afternoon, GitOpsians. We are live. Um, quick announcements. There's not really any announcements. The CFPs for GitOpsCon North America did close since the last time we had a stream. And then I was on the program committee, so I got to review all those CFPs. If you submitted one, it was very difficult. Um, they were all of them were excellent. There were a lot of really great submissions. So making recommendations was hard. So thank you everybody for those. 415 OpenShift, right, Johnny? That's a thing now.
It's not, it hasn't released yet, but the OpenShift, like the what's new in OpenShift 4.15, that they streamed that this morning for like an hour and a half. It's on YouTube. I'll find the link and I'll post it in the chat if you're interested. There's a bunch of cool things coming out with GitOps. Like they're doing manifest based deployments of OpenShift GitOps on Microshift, so now you don't have to worry about OLM and having all that crazy stuff. So like that was one of the things
We
I
all know
remember
how I
from that.
feel about OLM.
Yeah.
If you don't know how I feel about OLM, just go look up any of my talks about Kubernetes operators and you'll know how I feel about OLM. So that's exciting. It's terrible being in the know because like knowing what's coming in OpenShift 415 is great, but like 415 or 416 and 417, personally, I'm very excited about some things happening there. I don't know what's all public and what's not, so I'm just going to tell you to keep an eye out because I think there's some great things. So that brings us to our guest. So our guest today is Zain Kazmi, right? Yes. I'm so bad. I forget names like that. So as we all know, a few month ago now or so on LinkedIn, I was like, hey, we want to learn about games on this live stream. Can anybody come teach us about like game development, game CI/CD, that type of thing? And Zain was like, oh, I know. What if we did like an MMO in containers? And I was like, well, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Thank you, Zain, for being willing to come on and share your expertise and do some cool stuff with us. I'm gonna let you take over the introductions for yourself now.
Sure,
It's your show.
sure. Yeah. So yeah, my name is Zain Kazmi. I run a tech company out of Toronto. We do customized software development, digital advisory, and I'm working on a couple of smart city AI projects within the country. And today, kind of want to talk about a bit about MMOs, massive multiplayer online games. Um, the gist of how these work are reliant on something called WebSockets. So typically, when you're doing, web development, you're going to deal with a lot of HTTP requests and things like that, and they communicate through TCP requests. But then, those are requests that terminate immediately after the data and packets are sent through your network. Now, if you want to, have a constant stream of data. For example, I'm playing here, you're playing there, out in like let's say Europe, and I'm in Canada playing a game, and I'd say I don't know, my player throws a ball and I want your player to get it. An HTTP request doesn't do much there, right? So the underlying technology used here is WebSockets, right? So your WebSocket technology, which allows continuous stream of data over a TCP TCP connection. Now, what now the great thing about this is scalability, where once a server has open ports. A server has open ports. Uh, Sockets can be initiated by the client to connect to the port as long as um, as long as there's availability on a server to receive requests, and create increasing number of the number of incoming connections that are allowed onto your server. It's just a matter of configuration, right? So it's a pretty scalable architecture. It's pretty common architecture. Pretty much every video game technology, every online gaming technology uses this type of architecture. And yeah, so today I just wanted to here's a very basic sample mmog that uh, me and a colleague of mine came up with based off of some university course from like many years ago. and just wanted to show how to Dockerize it, and we're gonna try and deploy it to Azure in real time. And then if it gets deployed, we can try playing it live. If it doesn't get deployed, we'll spend time debugging it or talking about it. But yeah, so the repository, I am just gonna go ahead and clone it. Can you guys see my Ubuntu terminal?
Wait, hang on. I think Johnny and I hit to display it at the exact same moment, thereby turning it back off again. I think
Yep, I was fighting you.
now.
My bad.
You're gonna want to zoom in though, if you can, like whatever your keyboard command is, Control plus, Command plus, whatever, so that the folks at home can see it a little bit better.
Control plus. Let's see.
I don't remember even what my keyboard command is.
Yeah, I don't think it's can. Yeah, let me see if I can.
Control Shift plus on my terminal does it, because I'm on
All right.
Fedora.
Now this is WSL2, right? So.
Oh well, I give up. I have no idea. You're on your own.
Let's try. Let me try something else. So activities.
Yep, like activities and accessibility, and then I guess there's a seeing section. I googled this, right? So I'm like a 2-second expert here. So
Yeah, there we go.
Yep, and it says when you go over to the view, it just make it large or whatever.
Where
Large text. I think it was the
love
first
that.
video you were on.
there you go.
We need to reload that.
So try redoing it. Large. Okay.
I actually can read it better now. I don't know how well everybody else can see it, but
Yeah, I'm looking at it on Twitch. It looks like it's okay. Like it might take some effort though.
yeah. I think we're fine. If folks really can't see it, we'll just copy paste commands into the chat for them. We'll get around it. It's fine.
All right. Yeah. No. So one of the downsides of using WSL2, but it's gone a lot better than WSL1. When with WSL1, a lot of the signal stuff was a bit weird, but with WSL2, it's getting a lot better. Yeah, so I've SSH'd into an Azure virtual machine. This is an Ubuntu 22.04 server. Right, so I'm just clone the repository. Right, and then if you go in here, I'm cd red hat. Can't remember if I configured this with all the other stuff I wanted. I can't if I downloaded Docker already. But yeah, so just a brief overview of how this repository looks like. So we have our backend, front end, and database, right? Our database is Postgres. Our front end is in the source file. This is in React.js. MVC framework, very simple, very basic. I'll just give you a gist of how this app.js looks like. You can see here we have we initiate our sockets connections from our client side here. Or is that one of the components? Probably one of the components. Yeah, it's on one of the components. So yeah, no, so this it's very simple app. Um, and then from the backend, it's a Node.js backend over here. So we have our schema file, our game stage, as well as our database. So the database update database bash, that's a script that allows us to set up our database without having to do a lot of manual configuration. And let's take a quick look at the Docker files, since that's something that's going to be relevant to us. So the Docker files for the backend, pretty simple. Go into your directory, npm install, expose their database port, expose the backend port, and then our front end, we have a separate Docker file. Well, it's not a separate Docker file, another Docker file that's running here. So we have our Docker file here. This is now one thing here is that I don't want Node 14. Node 14 was just happened to be on the version of Node I was using that was being used by my colleague when he was creating this. So we're gonna have to change that. But yeah, no, straightforward installation. The compose file as well. Let's take a look at that. Right, so we have um, 3 images. Right, so we have a front-end image, a back-end image, and the database image right here. So yeah, So I'm gonna start by seeing if I have Docker installed. Actually, before we even do that, I just want to give us I just want to give a little bit of a demo of what the um game should look like. So I'm just gonna share that just so that we know what the end result is supposed to be. This is a screen. I'm gonna share a screen recording that my colleague made when who's helping putting this together. So let's do this. So he's like, so yeah, here it is. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
All right.
We appreciate the use of the logo, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. The UI initially, like for the source code, wasn't that really great. So he's like, let's just spice it up a bit.
It's we always appreciate anything that's a little bit more robust than a hello world, but I'm never going to be mad
Yeah.
about a hello world either. If someone's willing to come on, teach us something, give a demo, I don't really care what it looks like, but I do like it when it's pretty.
So if you see here, get 2 separate clients here. So you have client 1, client 2, right? It says player 1 and player 2. And so you think player 2 is moving around the board. Player 1 is also moving around the board. Now player just because player 1 disconnected doesn't mean that player 2 is disconnected. And now they're both so they're both able to act independently of each other, and they were able to separate commands, but then interact with each other in real time.
That's fun. I'm glad to see that. I like the little what do you call that? Preview of the end goal.
Yeah, I like my hope is that by the end of my hope is that by the end of this demo that we can we can try playing the game in real time. But yeah, let's start. Let's see what happens. Where did that go? All right, so steel snap install Docker. Okay, Docker's already installed. That's fine. I'm just gonna do sudo Docker compose down. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, okay, then Docker compose up build. Okay. All right, so that's fine. It's going through.
It's thinking real
All
hard
right.
about doing the things we asked it to do.
Yeah, most of these look fine.
Yeah.
But I do see one error. So, what is this error? Okay. Open SSL legacy provider is not allowed in node options. All right. Okay, let's see. Interesting. Okay. What I'll do is I'll restart it and run it as a background process, and then at the same time um access the Docker terminal because it's I think when it exited, right, so it terminated, but I don't want to terminate the entire thing, so I'm just gonna do that. See. here. All right, so I'm gonna look at export, see what you have here. All right, so one thing off the bat is like the node version being old, 19.43 could be the issue. But I don't see node options as an exported um, variable, right? So node options was not even set, right? So that's odd. Interesting. Export set node options. Maybe I should just try exporting this. Let's see. Let's try this.
I don't know, man. It's JavaScript. This is where my knowledge taps out. I'm like, JavaScript? If I have to, maybe. On a
No, I predict this is like a lot of this is just going to be like JavaScript debugging. So if anybody in the audience knows what the hell this is, I would really appreciate their help. Okay, Docker. So let's bring up the background processes. Okay, FG, kill that one. FG, VG. Okay, kill. All right, everything's dead. Interesting.
is that a GitHub repo everyone can see?
Yeah, it's a public GitHub repository. I can send the link in the somewhere here.
Yeah.
Let me just
Throw that in the private chat. Let me follow along on my end and see if I can. It's been, I don't know how many years since I used JavaScript. 4, I guess.
I mean, it's a Docker file, so you don't have to really download anything. Just have Docker installed on your image, and everything should be there.
Do I have Docker installed? I may only have Podman because this is a brand new computer. That's, gosh, the misery that is setting up a brand new computer and figuring out trying to remember all of the things that you previously had installed is.
Oh, do you have sudo access on your computer at least? Like,
yeah, I do have sudo access. It's not gonna be terrible.
Yeah, so it's one line. Now it's more of a complication when you're like working at a corporation. They don't give you sudo access, so every time you want to download something, you have to go to like,
yeah. I've lived in those realities too. Fortunately, that is not the current reality. It's just the, oh dang it, I'm missing that thing, and go get the down. It doesn't take very long. It's just a lot of fits and starts until everything's back up and running. And I was, I did a full image backup of my previous computer and just did a full image restore.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of the bin stuff, right? Because of how it's protected, doesn't actually end up coming over. So
yeah.
I had to reinstall. I use Homebrew for Linux. I love it. I had to reinstall Homebrew for Linux, and I must have done something stupid because now every time I open a terminal, it complains to me that in my bash profile, bin/brew is not a thing, but Homebrew does work. I'm like, oh, somewhere in my copy pasta, I messed up. I messed up somewhere, and I'll fix it later. It's just not right now.
And so what I'll try to do is I'll run the containers for the database in the front the database and the backend, and I'll say comment out Docker. Yeah, so let's comment out the front end image and just try to run that on its own. Not sure why it's doing that, but okay. Look at it. Docker compose down. Right. Compose up build. All right, so that's fine. So the backend and the database do work pretty well. That's fine. That's good. But then we have our front end that's kind of being weird. So I'm just going to run that outside the container, which I prefer not to do, but to npm I.
Oh, I don't have npm. There we go. I'm just like, what does the README say? I'm going to do the README. You don't have npm. Well, there you go. Not a JavaScript developer, right?
Yeah. Now I realize at this point, like JavaScript, no matter like I kind of hated JavaScript up to some point. Like But then at some point, I just realized it just became a necessity with Node.js. But I feel like with other frameworks kind of catching up, Node.js is kind of not, it's losing the popularity it once had. It's still popular, but it's not as popular as what it used to be. Like .NET Core's up there, Flask's up there, so not, Node.js is no longer like a default. Yeah, you can do everything in JavaScript, but if you're like a seasoned developer, like the language doesn't matter for you to you. It's more about like what like, what you're most comfortable with. All right,
Yeah,
so let's npm start this thing.
I got a React scripts command not found.
Hmm.
I'm missing React dependencies. Not a
You have to do
JavaScript
an
developer.
Yeah, just go into the into the are you running the Docker container, or are you running it just directly?
No, I was just gonna check it out directly and see if I could see anything, especially
Yeah,
because mine's a very fresh environment.
just do an npmi and go into the folder, into the source folder and do npmi
Okay.
npm space I. All right, so I'm gonna see if this works. So I've ran this. I'm running this live now. Outside the container. Let's see if we're able to get something out of this. As like like, right before I did, so I'm like, maybe I should try and do this beforehand. Maybe I shouldn't. It's Docker, nothing go bad, but things happen.
Things happen. I like it when demos are not perfect.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
debugging a lot.
yeah.
Which makes sense, right? I started off in quality engineering. Now I'm an SRE. Like, what is my favorite thing? I like to debug. I like to debug
Yeah.
broken stuff. So I wouldn't worry about it. I kind of like what we said, ahead of the audience. Like, you know what? We're not here to sell anybody anything. We're just here to look at cool stuff.
Yeah. So so what I've done now is I've run the front end outside of Docker, and I've run the database and back end inside Docker. So we're running kind of two separate things, but the ports are already open. So I'm gonna try and take a look. Okay, this works somehow. Okay. Um, let's see. Let me share the screen for this. Okay. All right. So the app is up here. Now we have. Now let's see if our login works. That's gonna. All right. So we have. Okay. So let's register a new user. Hmm, my screen has frozen. Zain Kazmi. Oh, Kazmi. Zain Kazmi. Password. Password. And we'll put like some random date. Right. Let's register.
What is the mechanics of this game that you're launching? Like, what is it? Is it based on? Is it like it looked like from the demos, like little people running around collecting hearts or something?
Oh yeah, so it's kind of like Pac-Man, but more competitive. The hearts are based on the stage, and are on the stage, and the players are supposed to go around the stage collecting those hearts. And there's also I think in the advanced version of this game, I'm not sure if I can't remember if it's implemented in this. And this is like a fork of the original source code, right? But in the original version of this game, you're able to like shoot the opponent so that they don't they don't get in your way and stuff like that. But in this one, I think just for the sake, just the simplicity, we removed all that, and it was just two players go around the screen, get for looking for hearts, and until one person fails or one person wins and corrects all of them.
I think you did your username was your last name, didn't you?
Yeah, no, that's not the issue. The issue is net error connection refused. Okay, so that's interesting. That's localhost, blah 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 blah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just gonna change it from localhost to yeah, that's fine. I'm just that's not an issue. That's gotta just change up the URLs for things. because again, we initially ran this locally, so grep r 3000. Yeah. See, it's going up. If objects.
I like how we got quiet because we're debugging. That is the worst thing. Like, welcome to software engineering. Everybody gets quiet because we're debugging. I was like, wait a minute.
I know.
Interacting with our audience. We're awake. We're awake. We did that
No,
engineering
no.
thing.
Yeah, no, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying so what's happening here right now is if you look at the area here, it's that I'm calling localhost from my from here, but I haven't changed it to update it to the IP address of the server that I'm using. So I'm trying to find out where this is, because again, this is very old code, like ridiculously old. I think like I think I like co-taught this course about 4 years ago. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, bear with me.
That's an eternity in software engineering time, right? Well, I was just sitting
Yeah,
here playing with this. I'm like, I wonder if I can get this running in Podman, right? I'm completely like, he's got this. He's gonna get his thing debugged. I'm not gonna add value here, and I'm over here like, can I get this running in Podman? I'm sure I can. I'm just trying to
yeah.
figure out what all I'm missing on my development environment at this point to make that happen.
Podman Compose.
Here it is.
I literally installed Podman 2 nights ago. So I'm like, I'm not entirely sure if I'm missing any additional piece. Default OCI runtime C run not found. I hit this the other night. I do have C run. Why does this happen? Completely unrelated to anything at all.
No, I think I got this now. Let's see. So I'm gonna Docker Compose for the back end. Now run it and try to npm the front end. See how this works. So, because I mean, like it's serving on it's being served. So it's probably just some internal like interaction things, probably something like really basic that just. The
It's
thing with
always
debugging though,
something silly, right? Isn't it? It's
yeah,
always something silly.
it's always something like, it's like, how did I not think of this immediately, So let's see. Like right now, like the issue is that I didn't change localhost to the URL. Like, oh my God, like, you know, how did I not think of that?
Every time.
All right, so I'm gonna sudo npm start. Yeah, just sudo npm start it.
And just so you know, we can only see your splash screen. Like we couldn't see anything
Oh,
in your
no,
terminal.
really? You can't see anything internal. Okay, Okay, I was working on the assumption you guys could see both.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just
Okay, so
assumed you didn't care if we saw your terminal.
no. Let's see here.
What is this? Digital
So we're
envelope
here.
contains
We're
unsupported. Hang on, let me
localhost.
enable it. There we go.
All right. So what's going on here? API login forbidden. Why is it forbidden? Tell me why is it forbidden? Oh, it's an invalid username password. No. Right.
That's a good reason.
See.
Well, that means that part actually works, right?
Yeah. And that means part one. So register. Okay, great. So I got that. Cool. Play. Yay, it's working.
Yay!
WASD. Now, actually, you know what? Why one of you guys join? I'm gonna
Yeah.
send the let me send the link to the server. It's for the server. Right here. Here you go. And then you guys can one of you guys can join.
Okay, I will join.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Johnny, I called dibs.
No, you're
Multiple. I think three people can join. It should at least.
All right, let's try it out. I'm gonna create my username. I have your screen hidden right now just so that the infinite mirroring thing doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was yeah, no, that's things go wrong, but you know, it works.
All right, let's play this game. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about like this WebSocket situation.
Sure.
Because last time I used WebSockets and I didn't really use them myself. Like that's not a great way of describing it. So WASD, Q to quit, play. Woo! I'm in. Last time I used WebSockets, so I'm this pink one. Wait, let me actually be clicking around in the correct window. That helps. Oh, okay. So last time I used WebSockets was with IoT. How do I pick these things up?
The instruction, I think we took too much out of the game, but yeah,
That's fair.
no, we took out a lot of stuff just to like minimize the complications because at its core value, it's supposed to be a lot more complicated, but we just like we kept the stage and the players just to indicate, just to demonstrate the idea or like how it's going, where it's like real time, two of us playing. How is that working? It's because in real time, my client is connected to the server, your client is connected to the server, and it's sending real time. So it's a server handshake, right? The server handshake is what's keeping this alive.
I wonder if we can share my screen too, so we can see it side by side. Because what's actually interesting is how, like, watching it on your screen share and then seeing the same corresponding movement on my screen share and seeing how simultaneous it is actually is the thing. I mean, and I know that's how MMOs work. Like, I get it. I've played them, but like, that's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Let me see. That's the one. Share. Okay, can we get these side by side? No. Maybe? If I turn off all of our video, we can.
Okay.
Like, I'm gonna do that. To bring us back. Oh, not that view though. That view's terrible.
You just disappear. You guys just disappeared for like 5 minutes.
No.
Really? I just couldn't see anybody. Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't have been for that long.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
yeah. Somebody's asking for the link for the game.
Up to you. I can absolutely share it out.
Yeah, you share that.
Copy link. Put it back. Johnny, how do we get the magic view where we're all like together and it doesn't look terrible? There we go. That's fine. So when new people join, and we'll see how well this holds up. When new people join, it'll we'll get an additional little color dot going. So like what I was saying is like the last time I used WebSockets was actually for IoT stuff. And kind of that kind of continuous streaming along that route.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, understanding that despite my full-time job as an SRE, networking is my weakest skill. Like how does you mentioned that WebSockets scale very well. Can you tell me more about like why they scale so well?
Okay, let's see.
And it's
Like
okay
one
if
of the
it's like
reasons,
it's hard to explain, but I was like, I don't
yeah.
get it.
Um, it's they do scale well in cloud architecture because at AWS, for instance, it depends. Okay, so on its own, one it scales really well because you don't need to add too much to scale it, right? You increase the number of ports, you can increase the number of connections available, you increase your CPU, and you know it can handle more players. And the client side is the same, right? Like the same client is deployed to every client that's using it. So as many clients there are, they can all make connections. Now, if the if the server no longer accepting connections, it won't work longer. But it won't work. But as long as the server is accepting connections, it can take as many um, as many incoming requests as the CPU the machine device can handle. Now, if you want to like scale WebSockets in the cloud, one way of doing it is AWS's auto scaling group, which allows you to spawn up new servers dynamically it dynamically scales up your servers, right, as more incoming requests are coming in. You can put it behind a load balancer or however you want to architect that. So it scales horizontally really well in terms of when you're deploying it to the cloud. Vertically, there's not much scaling you can do there, right? You can't like it's the underlying system that your underlying processes that you're going to have to scale, but the WebSockets themselves scale well horizontally. Um, yeah.
So when we're talking about like global interactions, right? And the true like the MMO nature, you've got like a million players, they're all over the world. You have
Mhm.
to have like multiple servers. Um it's been a good while since I've played an MMO. And I think the last time I played one, you had to connect to the same server, right, and
Yeah.
that was like a literal like actual boundary, but I don't think that's necessarily the thing anymore. I think that there is now like kind of like some cross server pollination of traffic. Is that an accurate representation of how this works?
Yeah, so now it's no longer like it's all about serverless architectures, right? So when you're playing games now, what's going to happen is that you're gonna join a server, right, and create a instance of a game on your server, and let's say I don't know whatever the game is, I've created a new instance of server and I want other people to join. Let's say it's a chess game. All right. I've gone onto my computer, I've opened a chess game, and I'm waiting for somebody else to join. Now my system I'm gonna have a separate, a separate service that detects people trying to play a game, and it will automatically route their client connection to the newly initiated game, right? So that's how that work, right? Back in the day, you had actual service, so you could not really jump people between services. But now with the serverless architecture, I can have I can have let's say I create a node red instance that looks for incoming connections and then automatically ports the client connection to any server that's looking for incoming connections before they want to start a game.
And so this is like some like port forwarding, or like what's the magic on that? Again, ironically, I'm not that great at networking.
Oh no, so the magic there is that it's not really magic. It's just like actually one I can show the code.
Yeah.
Just what happens.
I mean,
Whew.
you'll need to bring back your screen. When you're ready, I'll take mine down and put yours back up.
Sure, let me just find the Ubuntu screen that I was using.
Somebody joined and they are orange. Somebody was green and now they're gone. I appreciate the audience interaction with our little demo here.
That's just like at some point we got really quiet. I'm like until you reminded me we're live. I'm like, because that's just I immediately gone to developer
Yeah,
mode.
no, we hit. There was that moment where I was like, oh, we all did the thing. We hit engineer mode. We were like, how does this? What is it? Stare hard at it, and everything will work. And I was like, no, we're not allowed to do that right now. We have people waiting on us to be interesting. That's the job. We have to be interesting.
Yeah. Let me just refresh. I'm actually
Being interesting when there's a puzzle to work out is very difficult because I just want to do the puzzle. Ah, we lost him entirely. He'll be back in a second. There we go. We lost you for a moment there.
Yeah. I was trying to connect. I was trying to get share my Ubuntu screen, but it's not letting me share other screens again for some reason. But no,
Computers were a bad idea.
yeah, no. So behind the scenes, what happens is a network handshake.
Actually, is that in the back end? I have this thing up. I can share the screen if you tell me where to go.
All right. So let's see. If you go into, actually, I won't even remember anymore.
You see, that's the build. That's the back end. This is the server internal. WebSocket server. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. I can't really see what you're looking at, but yeah.
Yeah, I need to switch my screen share. Hang on. It was a different window, and that was my mistake. Was that it was a different window.
Yeah. So behind the scenes, it's just it's a TCP. You've just initiated a TCP connection. It's a port of a TCP server. And it's just waiting for incoming requests. Like that's what it does, right? If a WebSocket doesn't have any doesn't have anything connected to it, just listens, right? So the gist of it. So if let's say trying to think of it. Let's say I don't know what's the name of very famous MMOG.
The last one I played was World of Warcraft.
Okay, let's say World of Warcraft, right? And then I start a game. I want more other players to join live action, right? What's happening there? I've allowed now the server is listening for other connections, other clients, right? It's waiting for other clients to make connections to the server. So behind the scenes, what's happening behind the scenes has nothing to do with WebSockets until it's getting connected to this. So what's going to happen is a separate service that has nothing to do with WebSockets is gonna probably be dealing with new users registering, looking for games, things like that. And then the moment a new user comes in, it's gonna give them a list of available games for them to choose from. And then if they choose your realm, um, if they choose your realm, immediately their client gets connected to the WebSocket port that you're on as well at the same time. If that if that that's how that would work.
Right. I followed. I understood. So I'm also just kind of scrolling the code because this code is kind of covering exactly all the things you were talking about, although not necessarily visually in the order. Obviously,
Yeah.
JavaScript executes in whatever order it pleases. That's why it's JavaScript. Look, when you've needed something to happen in a really, really specific order and JavaScript has decided it's just not going to do that, you get very bitter about it.
That's why now you have state hooks within React or other frameworks where it's you have a component on mount, unmount, onload, offload to allow for that synchronization to occur. But
When did they add
again,
that?
oh, a while ago, pretty much all frameworks use
ES6?
this. Yeah,
Okay.
all web frameworks have this. Like, that's why it's like that's why websites have got a lot better. That's the reason. Um, like even if you go in this code base here, you'll see a lot of this. And this is about 5 years old at least, where it's like on load or on mount, do X, and then on when you're unmounting, like right before you're going to the next view of your application, it's going to unmount certain things, and so that the data doesn't persist into the next page.
That makes sense. Also, all of the stuff that I was doing in JavaScript was server side. It was all Node.js.
Yeah, so the file you have, ftd, is this is a server side, but then if you go to the source file, a source folder, that's going to be client side.
Aha. So what's a good like app.js?
Yeah, app.js is basically what compiles into. So here's the thing: React was not initially designed to be a framework, right? It was initially designed to be a library. That's why it acts on DOM elements as opposed to like other frameworks, which render, which are more render focused. But then eventually, with the Webpack bundler, React ended up becoming more of a framework, and pretty much everybody who uses it as a framework, though. Yeah, well, like actually, what more specific, React uses a virtual DOM. Angular uses an actual DOM, like it renders actual HTML code, whereas React, yeah, it acts more at the way jQuery would, but like it's a lot more consolidated.
Oh yeah, okay. The jQuery virtual DOM was such a problem.
Yeah.
Not like problem. It's great, right? The virtual DOM or the document object, right?
Yeah.
Is what does the M stand for? Document object. It's not manifest.
Model.
Model. There we go. I remember things. Yeah, so that document object model, right? Fun fact. So a lot of my early like programming stuff was actually like UI automation. And the thing about using a virtual DOM is that, for example, if you have like a web menu and you like hover over it, it has a drop down. So there's actually like, if you inspect the screen, you can actually see those things. So like if you're doing something like Selenium and you have to like select web elements and so forth in order to like do the end user flow automation testing, right? You think, okay, here's how I select this. But what it actually would do is when it was time to interact with those drop down menus is what was there would then be instantiated. And so there's actually would be that a second, like what was functionally a second set of rendered HTML that only existed when the hover was true. And so it actually had a completely different set of selectors required to use in order to actually, through automation, work with that interactive drop-down menu.
Yeah.
And it took me like 4 hours to figure that out.
Yeah. but like by default, jQuery is supposed to use the traditional, the traditional DOM, but the way React acts, it doesn't use that, right?
Yeah, I like the thing about the way React does though, because what happened is last time I was in a JavaScript stack, we were so off topic, but like this is just how we do. Last time I was in a JavaScript stack, which was obviously it was hashtag last job. Actually not the one that Christian and I always just reference, but like my actual like previous job. Was a the thing about it is because it does use a virtual DOM, like in the unit testing framework, you can actually like fully render the DOM. And then almost like 99% of UI bugs could be figured out with unit testing. You didn't actually have to do like that black box, like Selenium based, or that Cypress is the one, which is still Selenium based. Cypress like UI testing, you could actually do every bug we found in testing could be accounted for going forward in a unit test. I loved that about working with React from like my perspective. Johnny makes a great point in the private chat. We have about 8 minutes left. We were talking about how you can do MMOs and containers. Like, and we we got through your demo, which is fantastic. I got through that right quick. Any like kind of parting thoughts about like, especially because a lot of these hello world type things that are like we're trying to make our hello worlds better and using them containers, like any kind of like parting thoughts around the main topic before we get ready to sign off.
I mean, like one thing that like I would have, if I were to do this again, I mean, one thing I would do differently would be when adding more functionality too. I would try to demo probably something, some more of how the graphic some infinite graphics, right? Like with the way like PlayStation controls work. But and since I'm more using Azure, I could just use a high performance computer and demo that. But no, but in terms of like just showing how MMOs work and how convenient it is just how to deploy them, because the thing is like a lot of people think that when they're doing complex slightly complex networking stuff, that Docker is going to get interfere with it. Well, not really, right? This kind of goes to show that Docker doesn't really interfere with networking in that way.
And
Right, and
happy
and
accident, you kind of ended up with a hybrid architecture, right?
yeah,
You had a little bit more like standard, like old school, plus a little bit of containerized pieces. And I know
yeah,
that was an accident, but happy accident in my opinion, because it actually shows the power of exactly what you said. It doesn't get in the way.
yeah. The issue with Docker is not do with more with how with the React and JavaScript than networking, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't get in the way.
It doesn't get away.
Yeah.
And networking is such a I always say, like, I've done a lot of work with networking stuff. It always still feels a little magical when you think about it. Like, oh, there are just like wires with electricity running under the ocean, and somehow that results in like data being like, the whole thing feels like magic, and the types of connections. So, WebSockets and TCP, that was fun. I don't think I don't have any links handy for more reading if people are not familiar with those concepts as a whole.
Like,
But
yeah, I mean, like another thing that is that infrastructure. Sorry, not infrastructure. Yeah, infrastructure is called IAC. That's kind of coming to replace orchestration. That's something people that's being floated around. So things like Terraform, there's a big shift to pushing things like Terraform over Docker. But I personally don't believe that cloud orchestration is going to go anywhere, because it allows you to create platform independent systems, as opposed to systems that are heavily designed around a single infrastructure, right? For example, Terraform, you have to really heavily configure it for AWS or heavily configured for Azure, and then when you want to kind of transfer things around because of pricing, you're kind of stuck. So there's always going to be their benefits for developing platform independent.
yeah, which as it turns out is like the big selling point behind OpenShift, right? Like
Yeah.
we're platform agnostic. That's our thing. That's the shtick, as they say. Okay, 4 minutes left. I don't think that we had any questions from the audience that we didn't answer. If there are any last minute questions, this is the time, friends. Thank you again, obviously, Zain, for coming on and giving this demo. And thank you again to our lovely audience who is always so interactive with us. We appreciate you. I learned some things today. I learned some things, and I dusted off some old knowledge that I had forgotten. So I personally benefited, which is the whole reason why I asked you to do this, is I really wanted to learn some stuff.
So what's next? Like, I know you did this like 5 years ago, but like, what are you working on now that's similar to this? I mean, because I think that this is a good example of like microservice architecture, right? Where you have the three different, you have the front end, the back end.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few projects going on with my company, right? So when we have a smart city project with the city of Toronto. I have I'm actually there's a couple I can't talk about. One I'm doing that's actually really similar to this is I'm working with a biotech cancer cell therapy startup out in California, and we're doing kind of something similar where They have bioinformatics pipelines which are triggered when data is dropped in from clinical sites, and once the pipeline is triggered, it does its AI magic, does its sequencing data. Once the sequencing is completed, it sends out it pings a Lambda function. And the Lambda function sends out an email with the data set. Data set gets uploaded into a full stack web application. So it's a very convoluted, transitive data system. But I think it's pretty interesting because it uses a lot of the concepts here. It's a lot of listeners, a lot of WebSockets, and it's like, and the project is in itself very interesting because and very practical because it's trying to help cure cancer. And so that's one of one of my current projects that builds off of some of this knowledge.
That's really
Nice.
cool. I thank you for that. Actually, that kind of like, what do you know, the what are the non-gaming applications of this? Because that's, I think, one of those things where I think the thing that we've learned through, as Johnny, you can agree or disagree, we learned through our little exploration of like, well, how does I don't know anything about game software. How does game software even work? The answer has been like, well, it's not that different, right? Fundamentally, it's not that different than some of the things you've already seen and looked at.
Graphics software might be a bit different, like infinite persistence, but that has more with matrix development and things like that, as opposed to the actual execution of it.
I feel like graphics software, despite like how it visually ends up, is so math, right? It's just such like deep math that I'm constantly amazed. I'm like, how does math result in art? I don't get it, but it literally, I think that's how Stable Diffusion basically works. It's like, okay, we took some stuff, then we did some math, and now we put out, we're going to put quotes around art because I don't want to get into that whole argument, but like, it's all math.
Yeah, because you're taking a tensor and you're basically trying to peruse the the elements of that tensor so that the location is mapped according to your position, right? Like it's tensor algebra.
Yeah, I never took such high level math classes. Something about that whole dyslexia thing and the math thing somehow didn't result in me. Math was the subject that always stood between me and a 4.0. Right? I could get a B+ in math, and it was always, I would miss one or two things because dyslexia and tests result in very silly mistakes, like completely transposing numbers. I have one, like, and we're at time, but there was one thing that happened to me in high school where I was one question away from 100% on a test. And it was, I literally had done all the math correctly, written it all out. And then when I went and wrote the answer on the answer line, I literally wrote the answer pretty much in mirror. And my math teacher was like, I wondered how that happened. And I was like, it's dyslexia, but you saw I had the correct answer. Can't you give me credit? He's like, no.
I get that.
Wait, I'm like, how old am I? I'm 33 years old and I'm still thinking about that. Like, what? Dyslexia is the worst. And math is hard. That's the summary, but it's also cool. Learn math, kids. What's next? 2 weeks from now, I don't think we have our topic set. We'll figure that out. As for me, I'm off to go do a HEMA tournament right after this. So that means I go fight with swords, and I'll be posting pictures on LinkedIn from that probably because that's real fun. Until then, I'm going to remind everybody, as per usual, to choose their technical debt wisely. I'm going to let Johnny do the outro, and we'll see you all in about 2 weeks. Thank you again, Zain.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers.